So let's get right into the review of Green Stuff World's 8 fluorescent paint set, plus an additional 2 colors of theirs I'm including to cover all the fluorescent paints they have available at the time I made this video. So universally, all fluorescents, as of January 2024 that I'm aware of, have a number of issues, which is why I think it is important to first give a short but broader review of fluorescent paints. If you're not interested, I should have a timestamp below for you to skip ahead to the demonstration of the colors. Now, since I know someone who made this mistake, I just want to clarify, fluorescent does not equal glow-in-the-dark. Fluorescent paint will only glow under a black light. With that being said, I'd like to start with what I like about fluorescents. Because fluorescents glow with a black light, you actually don't need to turn off all the lights to get the glow effect. What this allows you to do is put your model or figure in dimmer lighting, then add a black light. The result is you can still see all the model details and unaltered regular colors, as the normal light will overpower the black light, but at the same time, the black light will still be powerful enough to cause the paint to glow. This means you can add some really cool effects, my favorite being glowing green eyes. It also works well with things like small jewels on weapons, and if you like Gundam models, I think it's really fun to use it to panel line, as it gives off a pretty cool effect. That's what fluorescents are great at, adding those small little special effects. And that brings me to the 2 biggest problems I've had with all fluorescents: its coverage and colors. I've never been able to get a fluorescent paint to satisfactorily cover an area thicker than a fingernail clipping. If you're painting with a brush, you are going to have issues with the paint running and bunching up into bloated thick mounds and thin transparent areas. To get an area covered, you'll have to do multiple layers and build the paint up very thick. It may look fine at a distance, but upon close-up inspection, you are definitely going to notice it. Now, if you have an airbrush, this can be somewhat mitigated, but you are still going to have issues with the colors on 2 fronts. First, under just normal light, fluorescents tend to be so obnoxiously bright, it can be very hard to get them to balance or look good with other colors. I do think the pink and green are a bit of an exception and can look really good with like a black. Normal fluorescent red, though, has always looked ugly to me in all cases. I've tried and largely failed at trying to get it to work. This brings us to the colors under a black light, where my biggest issue is the colors themselves changing. Every red I've ever tried becomes pink. Every yellow just becomes a lighter shade of green. Oddly enough, sometimes the oranges will come out looking yellowish instead. With blue, and to a lesser extent purple, they will glow the proper color, but at a fraction of the intensity of their counterparts. Sometimes they can be hard to see at all. However, green and pink both usually work great. So with that, I will be reviewing Green Stuff World's fluorescents in 2 ways: how they compare to other fluorescents I've seen, and what I would expect from a truly great fluorescent of that color. So all the fluorescents here I applied over Green Stuff World's matte white primer. I also tried some of the colors over a second primer color, and we'll cover that when we get to those. First up, we have Fluorescent Blue. Under normal light, it looks like a light baby blue. I put several layers on for this, with a couple less on the inside of the spoon, which is why it appears lighter. Under the UV light, it suffers from the same issues as most blues. The glow is weaker than other colors, and the blue glow is considerably faded. Looking close in person, you can see it's a blue, but due to it being so faded, you could just as easily mistake it for standard white. For a truly spectacular fluorescent blue, I'd like it to be twice as luminous and much more noticeably blue. However, that doesn't appear to be currently possible. This is due to UV light being violet. If you know anything about color wheels, you know purple is a mix of red and blue. And if you shine a light that is partially blue on blue, it will naturally fade and or hide the color. So I'm going to have to give the blue a solid 4 stars. It has its issues, but I've also never seen it done better. Next is Fluorescent Violet. Under normal light, you do get a rather nice light purple color I really like. Again, I use several layers, and I know there's a few paint spots, but that has to do with application issues on my end and not the paint itself. Under UV light, it comes out a very pinkish purple, almost more of a bubblegum pink. It's also a bit faded, but using a violet light on violet, this is hard to avoid. Still, I'm actually impressed I could make out what I could. I give it 4.5 stars. I've not come across a better violet, and it works better than I expected. For 5 stars, I'd like it to be a bit more luminous, with a stronger purple glow though. Next is Fluorescent Lime. It is important to note here this is a lime and not a solid green. There are excellent fluorescent greens out there, so if you are looking for a more solidly green color, I would go with something else. When doing things like glowing machine eyes, I do use a fluorescent green and not a lime. So, I just want to be clear, I am judging this as a fluorescent lime, and as a fluorescent lime, the color is spot on. Under normal light, it is clearly a lime color, and under UV light, you've got a strong light green glow. I couldn't ask for more, so give it 5 stars. Now, I've always used a white primer for all my fluorescents, without exception, but I was feeling a bit experimental, so decided to also try a pink primer with yellow, orange, red, and pink. Pink primer can make regular yellows, oranges, reds, and pinks more vibrant, so I was curious to see what effect it would have on their fluorescent counterparts. Also, pink primer is a very bright color to begin with, so I figured it was more likely to pair well with bright fluorescents instead of clashing with or degrading them like a black or gray would probably. That brings us to Fluorescent Yellow. The spoon with pink primer is on the left, and the one with white is on the right. Oddly enough, under normal light, the one with pink primer looks yellow, while the white looks more like a lime. Under UV light, they both look about the same, which is to say green and not yellow. I don't know why this is the case, but yellow fluorescents always look green under UV light. I give this yellow 3 stars. I debated going as low as 2, but it does have a very bright glow, so decided against it. That being said, under normal light, it wasn't a bright yellow over either primer, so I feel there are better yellows out there. However, every yellow I've come across still has the issue of glowing green under the UV light. Next, we have Fluorescent Orange-Yellow, with pink primer on the left and white on the right. In this case, I was surprised to find the pink primer made for an excellent orange color under normal light. Then, like many fluorescent oranges, it glows a bright yellow under UV light. I will give this one a little leeway though, as it is an orange-yellow and not just a straight orange. That being said, if you remove the label, I would have sworn this was just straight orange. Overall, I give it a solid 4 stars. It does glow yellow, but again, I see that issue with most oranges. As for the others, a perfect example is our next color, Fluorescent Orange, which is to say a terrible orange. When it comes to fluorescent oranges, you seem to either get a solid orange that then glows yellow, or an orange that is subpar in every way. Despite putting multiple layers on each spoon, the orange does not want to thicken or darken, so comes out a transparent sherbet color that I think just looks awful. Under UV, it does glow a dim light orange, but the color is so light and faded I think it looks worse than if it was a brighter, more solid yellow. I give this orange a 1 star. From the application issues, off color, and dim glow, I would just give this one a pass. Next we have Rose, aka pink, with pink primer on the left and white on the right. In this case, I think I like the pink over the white primer more. I have no complaints for pink. It's a strong pink under both normal and UV light. That's not a surprise, as pink and green have always been the 2 strongest fluorescent colors. I usually reserve 5 stars for what I think is the very best version of something I've come across, but I'm going to give this one 5 stars in this case. That's not to say there are not a lot of equally good and strong fluorescent pinks out there, but that I just don't see how the color can be improved on any further. So while there's equivalence, it's also the peak version of it, so I feel it does deserve 5 stars. Next is Red, which suffers from a lot of the same issues as Orange. Despite several layers, the paint won't thicken or darken, and it comes off looking like a pink, both under normal and UV light. I have been able to get it to thicken somewhat with a brush to the point it will look red, but it's so thick at that point, it is also easy for the paint to tear and come off. It also doesn't thicken or spread evenly with the brush, globing together in spots. The pink glow honestly isn't bad, but the thing is, the pink glow is just as good or better with an actual pink. I give it 3 stars. Not because I think it's average, but because every fluorescent red I've come across kind of stinks. So I really just see it as your standard fluorescent red. Now outside the set, Green Stuff World also sells a fluorescent turquoise, and I'm honestly pretty shocked by how good it is. I was expecting a darker green that was just pretending at being a turquoise, but under both normal and UV light, it really does have a nice turquoise color that I really like. It's perhaps a little dimmer than normal green, but it still has a strong glow and distinct color. I haven't come across a true fluorescent turquoise before, so I'm going to give it 5 stars. I would definitely recommend giving it a try if you like playing with fluorescents. Finally, we have Fluorescent White, which I ended up finding out is less of a white and more of a clear white. I ended up using it over a black primer because I was having difficulties getting it to work with my airbrush and then couldn't tell if it was even coming out. Long story short, it was just not smoothly, which is why the paint has a speckled look over the black. For whatever reason, the Fluorescent White has an odd, thicker consistency than their other fluorescents that can go straight into an airbrush. I ended up diluting the white with a 1-to-1 paint to thinner ratio, and once I'd done that, it sprayed just fine. Now, as you can see with the pink primer, the paint does not come out a solid white, but as a clear white. That means it'll whiten up whatever you painted over a shade or two, but it won't change the underlying color. However, under the UV light, it does have a fairly strong glow. This actually opens up new ways I can use fluorescence I find interesting. I really feel like I need to play around with this more before I can confidently rate it. But for now, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I'd rather the white been fully transparent than had the white tint, as I do feel that limits the applications, which is why I removed a star. But then again, if I'm able to apply it well in new ways, I might want to add a star. If anyone has had a chance to play with this color, let me know how you've used it and what you think in the comments. So to sum up, I really like the pink, turquoise, and clear white. I would stay away from the orange and possibly the red. Overall, I would give their fluorescence 4.5 stars. It's a fairly solid fluorescent set, and they have excellent additional and unique colors like turquoise and clear white. Now, if you would like a particular paint or model product reviewed, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Also, if you would, please consider donating through my Patreon or buy me a coffee. The links will be in the description. The more money I get, the more reviews and videos I can make. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.